Okay. Hoe maak jy altyd Merwe? Apparently that's a sign to check that the sound is working and everything. Makati,
Yes.
Denis, welcome to
Thank
Meet
you.
Me in the Field, to the
you very
100th episode recording. Thank you for agreeing to be my guests
You're welcome.
for this special occasion. Let's start by you introducing yourselves. Just who is Makati, who is Denis, and don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Sure, introductions are always hard if there isn't more questions, but I'll try. So I'm Makati. I'm a seeker. I'm a pilgrim. I am, and that's really the main impulse of my life, is I seek to live a life that's more closer to who I am, to the center of who I am. And so the experiences that I have sought are, I've become a psychologist, an expressive arts therapist, actually. And so I use the arts in my work. I am a healer. I do healing work, shamanic work. I am a leadership development facilitator, and I do. I'm a companion. I'm a rites of passage companion. So I walk with people through different passages, through different experiences that they're going through, to move from who I am to who I perhaps to a more fuller self. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mm.
What you forgot was that she's a pilgrim in heels.
Yes, in
not
heels.
not today. No. the heels are apparently in the car.
Yes, they are.
Denis.
Well, you chose us, so you chose probably another healer, seeker, absolutely. The accent is from Luxembourg, very small country. I landed 20 years ago, and my next door neighbor was Freddie in my very first. And I came for a year but could never leave. But yes, having seeked a lot, but that started in the past, and you can listen on the podcast. But the healing now is when people are majorly traumatized, motor vehicle accidents, falls. I stop the bleeding and control contamination through surgery, trauma surgery. We are a country in the world. We have a huge amount of trauma, and then that's why the young surgeon that I was just got sucked into doing that. Mendenberg Hospital, there was no choice. There was just needing to help people survive and then move on. They have to move on. And right now we do very well. Yes, it takes, it's a little bit, well, the emotional part. And I heard the other day somebody advised me and said, when you have somebody who is so taking your emotion just inside of you, just remember that they are them and you are you. So you do a couple of inner statements of that is their journey and this is my journey. And so and then I come home, and then the other half is not overwhelmed with the emotions, because we have people, we hope they're going to be still alive the next day. We do everything correctly. So that's what I do.
Thank you very much. The first time that my then partner and I decided to invite Denis for dinner, we prepared a chicken, a beautiful roast chicken, and obviously asked Denis to slice the chicken for us, thinking that it's going to be done with surgical precision.
Funny.
Within 2 seconds, there were 4/4 of the chicken lying there. There you go. We both of us looked at it and that's not exactly what we had in mind.
Chicken anatomy was not my forte, so the knife sliced through the spine, through the trunk.
That's funny.
And that was it.
So that was not the intention. It was supposed to be perfectly sliced slivers of soft chicken, succulent. Anyway, that's it. Makati, tell us about your journey to Pilgrim in Hills. Why in Hills specifically?
Gosh, tell the journey. I mean, there's so many there's so many points that I can pick up on, but I will try. A couple of years ago, okay, this is where I'll pick up. I mean, I know that I've always been a pilgrim. I know that I've always sought. And actually, yesterday, as part of my end of season ritual, I was looking through photographs and playing music and playing incense and dancing in my bedroom. And I was looking at old photographs of myself and my family. And I came across photographs of myself as a 9-year-old, and I was wearing heels. And I thought, oh my gosh. But children's, wedges. I thought, oh my gosh, this thing has been with me all my life. The seeking part, I mean, it's the central focus that gives meaning to my life. And I have to live a life that is filled with meaning, or else I'm floating all over the place. And so, and that meaning really is the search for divinity within me. And a couple of years ago, 2015. How long ago is that? 4 years. 4 years ago, actually no, 5 years ago, in 2014, things came to a head. I'm going to reverse. 2009, my mother died. 2010, my partner and I moved to Cape Town. That same year, my father died. That same year, I sold my house in Johannesburg. The following year, my relationship broke up, sold that house, moved. So there were many different losses that I experienced, and I felt like I was being plunged into some kind of liminal space where there wasn't anything behind me that I could use to define who I am, and there wasn't anything in front of me that I could say, okay, this is at least where I'm going.
Yeah.
So I really found myself in a terrible space of utter nothingness. But also the liminal space is a space of possibility, I suppose. Although at the time I couldn't connect with that. And in 2014, I thought, okay, things are so bad that I need to do something to save myself. And I applied to go and take the sannyasin, which is becoming a monk, a nun in India, with the Satyananda ashram. And it was absolutely imperative for me to just unplug from the noise of the world that was in me. And so I applied. At the time, I applied and thinking that intending to go in 2015. It was a 2-year program. But what it meant was I would have to surrender my phone and all means of communicating with the outside world, including my family. And my family wasn't going to have it. They were adamant. I mean, we'd lost both our parents, and with just 4 other siblings and nephews and nieces, my sisters didn't want that to happen. But they didn't say that they didn't want it to happen. They just went and prayed behind my back that it doesn't happen. And I remember, so I waited and waited and waited, and I didn't hear from the ashram. And I phoned them one time, and it's a silent ashram, and the woman answering the phone, I phoned India, and the woman answered, hello, it's Sai with noble silence, I can't speak to you. I can't speak to you. And I said, no, I'm from South Africa. No, I'm also whispering. Then realize, okay, I actually can't speak normally. I'm phoning from South Africa. I need to know, am I coming or not? And she said, later, South Africa, yes. And I thought, okay, I will hear from them. I didn't hear from them. 2015 arrived, and I thought, okay, so this isn't going to happen. This isn't happening. And I went to Rwanda. I was in Rwanda. And I got a letter from my partner, my ex-partner. She was an ex by then, and read a letter to me saying, "You have been accepted. Please report to the ashram in February." By now it was the end of March, and I just cried and cried listening to this because my lifeline actually had gone somewhere else, and it was absolutely devastating. But I think at that point was the point that I committed to really, really focusing most specifically to my pilgrimage. And so I took the year off, and I started doing, and then I did silent retreats, Vipassana. I went to climb Kilimanjaro. I got sick. I climbed Mount Meru instead. I went to India to do a yoga teacher training course. I was going to walk the Camino, but my toes, that's a big story. But that was the time. Oh, and in that same year, I ended up in hospital with an ovarian torsion, which means that my ovary had twisted on itself, had grown cysts, and then it ruptured.
Yeah.
So, and that was the time that I was supposed to have gone to walk the Camino. And so it's just as well that I wasn't out there in Spain, but on the side of the road, needing major surgery. But being turned away was absolutely a turning point for me. Or that letter arriving late was a turning point for me that invited me, or that coerced me to really be intentional about how I practice my spirituality. And that's the year that I started my blog, Pilgrim in Heels.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I was just thinking now, so Pilgrim in Heels.
Yes.
What year did you run the Comrades?
Yes.
That year as well?
Not in heels. No. Comrades was years ago, 2004.
Okay, so by that time the Comrades is active.
I was much, much younger then.
And fitter, I presume.
Well, a little bit more, yes.
So, Pilgrim in Heels, but most of the things you talk about you do either without shoes or with very flat shoes.
I know.
So, are the heels when you go out?
Are the heels always?
Always.
Well, and also it's Pilgrim in Heels because I recognize that my journey and this world, I am a modern woman, and my seek, I'm not going to be. I think when I wasn't accepted, or when I didn't end up going to India to become a nun, I think I stepped into, okay, Makati, you actually are not a nun, even though you may have yearning and longing for stillness and for solitude and for a measured rhythm in my everyday. But perhaps that's really not where my expression of my spirituality is going to take place. The expression is actually going to take place in the noise of the city and in the utter insanity of everyday life, and that's really where it's happened. So I absolutely get down on a Friday night. On the dance floor. I've got. I mean, I went to do a poetry. I went to the McGregor Poetry Festival a couple of years ago to perform my poetry, and one of the poems that I have starts with, I have 115 pairs of shoes, like 83 pairs of which are high heels, and then ... it goes on. But I mean, that's how it goes.
And you're serious? I saw them. Denis.
No high heels on that.
We hope not.
Not today. You're actually wearing very comfortable.
Yeah, those are very serious shoes.
Very snazzy. You could climb a mountain with those.
Yeah.
You could walk a long spiritual road with those.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You being European and arriving being from Central Europe, arriving in the south point of Africa, did you experience a significant difference in spiritual outlook?
I experienced that Cape Town was a special place. First year, to us apartheid, I mean, where we lived, the Nelson Mandela concerts, we knew about apartheid there. So when I came, I didn't know, but I was excited. And I didn't find the people that made this division and hate amongst people possible. I only met lovely people. Felt some white guilt, as one can, having been part of a race that did bad things. and always being told, "Are you German? Are you German?" I always say, "No, I'm not German," because Luxembourg is independent and we speak a dialect that split 1,000 years ago. But so living with this, no, I'm not a German, but here, yes. Well, I also said I'm not a South African. That's why you hear my accent, and I'm proud to keep my accent. And I only found lovely people, and it is a healing place. I do think that South Africa is a healing place, and having then worked in Menenberg, seeing the people that go to school, I realized that the medical fraternity was fantastic. The medical system is very good, because your doctors do very good, have a huge basic knowledge, because they have seen so much and done so much. And then what more exciting than to continue to heal people that come not with just little psychosomatic problems, but a knife in the chest, or a wound in the heart, or a bullet that went through the whole body. And in Menenberg, where the government didn't want to have a surgeon work there was no specialist post, so I accepted a normal GP salary for all these 11 years and saving lives. And it was amazing, because we had very, very good survival. And I went down and I spoke about it and posters out. So Cape Town, a healing place. Me, myself, ending in an accident that was 2 years down the line. You came and visited me at the hospital, being on a ventilator a couple of days, broken ribs and ruptured here and there. So that also then, so you realize, I realize in retrospect that I probably had to go through that. There was still a lot of confusion, and then it made me become a better doctor. So today, to be a trauma surgeon and help people, I'm then also not the usual one. I know that medical doctors can hide behind facades, and of course, because we don't know everything. Healing Western medicine doesn't know everything, but stopping bleeding, controlling contamination, and then giving antifungals when there's a fungus, and giving an antibiotic when a life depends on it, and somebody in septic shock that starts dying from it, if you have seen it, and if you then know that giving those antibiotics kick you back and everything starts again and make people survive. That's why I live with Western medicine, but I always felt close to the alternatives. But the energy, there's very little we can do about it, isn't it? So, and as you had asked me about when I say the metaphorical truths, when I do say things happen for a reason, it might not be so, but believing that it is so makes us live a better life. So there's still a lot of, we co-create our healing, but we need the Western model, we need the alternative model. You need to know your doshas and eat correctly to balance your kapha, pitta, vata, dosha, whatever. Live in balance, and then. But if you have a torted ovary, it needs to somehow come out. If it gets infected or if it bleeds, that is then that is the balancing act. But this country is a healing place. I met lovely people, and then this place where people say, "Oh, let's leave, let's go away. There's going to be chaos." But in 20 years, I haven't seen chaos arrive, and I think the future is still going to be here. And from here, you look at the rest of the world. You look at Europe. You look at, and then I tell people, well, going anywhere else it's not going to be better there than here. So.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. I was thinking, has anybody ever heard Luxembourgish? It's a yeah, definitely, yeah. Because we work for a company whose head office was in Luxembourg. But Luxembourg is a strange language.
Het klinkt een beetje wie Duits. Dat is een Mosel-Fränkisch dialect. Dat schwätzen wir daheim. Die Afrikaner verstehen een beetje. Die Duits van de Schluss schwätzen verstehen dat doch.
So there's the touch of German
that's a little bit.
And that made me think of somebody that said, you know, that marijuana has been legal in Holland for a very long time. And I said, yeah, that's true. He said, well, that's why they speak Afrikaans so funny. So I have to wonder what's been legal in Luxembourg for so long that they speak German and French so funny. So, And I don't want to make this too long because there's a crap load of food, by the way. There's a crap load of food. Now, what happens tomorrow morning is I'm flying to Johannesburg to go and help my mom to move into her new apartment after my father's passing. So, and Jacques asked specifically that you please eat all the food because he doesn't want all the leftovers in the house because he cannot, he doesn't eat crap, he only eats healthy stuff. So please do him a favor and eat the food. Denis, I'm now going to start with you and say, what has been the biggest influence on your idea of spirituality?
Opening up and then being hungry for hearing the right thing. And we all know that once we hear the truth, once we hear this word that comes and is spoken and that sounds so right, then we just know. And that's a little bit, and if you're a seeker and you listen, so yes, Deepak Chopra is reading, and then there were other things there that I didn't like so much. But then Eckhart Tolle, the day I heard a CD by Eckhart Tolle, and Eckhart Tolle is an enlightened being and he just speaks things. So that is, and I think that Eckhart Tolle, for us Westerners, speaks just the easiest way to understand. So that is just being open and wondering, and yeah, like I said, I go back to and listen. I told my story of afraid of dying, studying medicine, talking to psychotherapists, realizing what it means to have something thrown away or repressed. If you repress something and you bite your nails because of it, the day comes out, that's it, you're free. You're free, it's solved, it's over. But we are like an onion and we're going to peel that onion. Is it in the incarnation wanting to really get the best out of it? And the big driver is fear of death. So if you, and many people say, I'm not afraid of dying, I'm just, I just don't want to have pain or so, but I'm not otherwise afraid of dying. I could never understand that because I find that us enjoying being in this incarnation must be linked somehow with the regret that one day this will end. But then I understand as well that if there wouldn't be an end, how would it then be? We can't conceive that. We can't conceive that. That's why. But we are consciousness. Overall, that is the one thing where we cannot take that away. There is this, even if this is a dream, there's something that perceives the dream.
Right.
And that's fascinating. So this something that perceives this dream is consciousness. And then is it individual? Is it a collective? Is there an interaction? Lots of questions, not many answers, but be in the flow. The thing, we do live in our body. That's unfortunately. We get incarnated and here we are inside our body and all we want is to connect with other people and melt with other people. Probably to and there's the genetic part. The genetic part, as I say, the male, female. Otherwise, the race wouldn't have. So that is how the universe has made us continue to exist. But I find amazing, and you have a lot, and you yourself, I get. Okay, I think the whole gender evolution that is happening right now on the planet. I mean, that is quite amazing. How now more and more people are discovering where they are on this scale from exclusively male to exclusively female, and how many people and many possibilities. That's also telling us that there's a big waking up happening. I mean, it's and we can get married and we can do things, but we mustn't take it for granted. No? Like Yuval Harari reminds us. I mean, remain an activist and go out there and still. But being an activist when you fight something too much, it's going to resist. So be the one that shine the light, do your thing, help where you can, and don't be too much frustrated by the big things that we can't change. James, the big corporations, the capitalistic system, when one goes and is frustrated that there's money making, and it is not true. That is us as well. It's an expression of us, and pharmaceuticals. It's not only about money. It is ultimately about healing. They do help a lot. That is how we. That's why one mustn't. As we lose our ego, we must also realize that then saying this, that's the ego shows itself in different things. The greed, the human greed that comes out in corporations. But ultimately, it's us. We are doing this. So let's not blame anybody. Let's try to establish a system where we can then all, with our best possibilities, share, and also telling people, here, you want this? Come. I can show you how to get there. I can show you how to get healthy. You have to do the effort. If you don't want to continue on the journey, that's it. Then we split here.
Awesome. Thanks, Denis. What I find interesting is that your fear of dying started this journey for you. And what I've discovered over the past few years is that the bigger fear is that for me has been the fear of not living, of not living life anymore. And that's been an amazing journey to go on, is to say kind of, fuck that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab the bull by the horn. I'm going to live. And that was really an amazing journey for me to start. Makgati, who or what has been your biggest influence on your spirituality?
Who or what? I'm just going to very briefly refer to my upbringing, because that's part of what our podcast was about. Growing up, being raised in a family that was deeply Catholic, and with a mother who was also a traditional healer, and my family managed to merge the two, to integrate the two in a way that was seamless and made it be normal to straddle these two worlds, and not to be discombobulated by that straddling. So that was my first big influence. Was it's okay to explore it makes sense to explore many different ways, because the paths are many, even though the destination may be one, and not to derogate or to shame another path simply because it's one I don't understand. So so that was critical for me, and I recently. So I've recently been working on. I have to find a way to speak about this in a way that makes sense. I've been doing some deep work into figuring out what lies at the core of who makes me me, and what is it that is here inside of me. I mean, I'm pointing to my body because that's the easiest, but it's, and it's an experience that I had with somebody that made me question, but Makgati, who are you without being affirmed by the world? Who are you without the longing to belong? Who are you without a romantic relationship? And so I've just recently, past couple of weeks, I've been asking and delving deeper and deeper within to figure out, all right, so what is the story that I hold that tells me that this is who I am? And I've been using my biggest influence then that is assisting me to do this is A Course in Miracles, and And some of the work that I've been doing has made me realize that at the center, so I had things happen in my childhood. Who hasn't? I've had things happen in my childhood, and from those things, I developed a particular story, a particular belief about who I am. And that belief had to do with, well, because of this thing that happened, it must mean that I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of attention. And in fact, other people are there, have it, I just am not one to have it. And so aligning love with rejection, with abandonment, with abuse, with all the negativity. But above that, then I have unconsciously attracted people that are not available romantically. And so ultimately at the top of who I am has been utter loneliness. And so I've been working with the issue of loneliness for, And I've realized, and enter A Course in Miracles, that actually I don't change the story. I don't change. I can't change this by changing my external world, but really by accepting that when we are told, when God tells us that I love you and you are loved and I have created you, that actually it is true, and that truth is what makes me me, and arriving. It's been absolutely unbelievable to arrive at a point of saying, okay, I stop fighting now. I surrender into this love that I am. Nothing in my external world changes. But so the stuff in my childhood is still there, but the story that I'm telling myself, or the story that has always been there, I have been obscuring it with my own narrative, with my own sense making, and removing that sense making and arriving at, sure, actually I am love. I am made of love, and I am love. And so what comes out of me can only be love. It doesn't matter what happens actually in my external world. So yeah, A Course in Miracles. And actually, it's things not going according to what I want.
Being forced to read
Being forced because I couldn't bear it. It was too much. And I mean, this is really how I've constructed all my relationships, romantic or otherwise. Yeah. So my interactions have actually been motivated to a large extent by fear. And this is why A Course in Miracles talks about two emotions, love and fear. And I had chosen one. I had chosen fear to be the main essence of who I am. Awesome. No more.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
No more fear.
It's enough.
Let's do love.
Enough. And I mean, of course, it feels like it's easy. You just think you can change your mind. And of course, it is easy. You can change your mind. But it's in the you know how the universe works. Once you decide on something, then you have all sorts of opportunities to really affirm the decision you made. And so opportunities come, and I constantly have to say, all right, Makati, choose again. Look again. And A Course in Miracles says, you need, at the beginning, maybe you need a little bit of willingness. And then later on, our brother says, no. Our brother Jesus says, no, you need big willingness, not just a little bit. Because it's a commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So change is a huge commitment. You're also bloody afraid of it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't want us to keep us much longer, so I'm going to open the floor. Are there any questions or feedback before we hit the snacks? None.
There he is.
How much of your experience with your mother being a traditional healer, incorporating that with the religion, comes to your current psychology and shamanism and all of that being integrated? Yeah.
So I used to teach at RAW. I used to teach psychology at RAW, UJ. And did he jump or did he fall?
Shame, are you okay?
That's the question, hey. And so my mother used to teach. I used to teach psychology at Rao, and I introduced a module on, the role of psychology in Africa. Excuse me. And I brought in my mother. I asked her to come and teach alongside me aspects of traditional healing, African traditional healing, and what it means and how it can interact and be integrated with psychology. And in my work now, my healing work is around traditional healing work. I've learned to listen, and when I listen, I'm able to hear and connect to what is needed when a person comes. And what I do isn't anything. It isn't anything special. We all can. We all have the capacity to listen and hear. But I've worked quite a lot to mute the noise so that I can really hear when I'm being spoken to. It's very present in my life.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure.
Anything or anybody else? Anything from anybody else? No. Cool. So now we will have the exit music playing in the podcast, which I'm not going to try and redo for us.
Sing it.
Sing it. Oh, yes.
No way. Guys, thank you so much. Denis, Makati, really appreciate it. And we are now going to cut the cake, and then we're going to stuff our piles. So let's go.
Thank you.